Hey everyone, welcome back. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tea Time. Just give me 1 second. Our co-host Perry White is about to jump on.
Hey, Brian,
Morning.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Can you hear
Awesome.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
How's your morning been so far?
Oh, it's been good. Tried to do a little bit of pattern making this morning, and as usual, my morning meditation, which was a little more challenging today. I guess maybe I'm just a little excited, so it was hard. It was
Oh,
hard to
that's good.
it was hard to get in there, but it's all good. As long as you try, got to keep trying no matter what.
But that sort of
Thank you
segues.
for the wonderful team. I can't hear you.
Yep, can you hear me? Maybe.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Is
I
that
can hear
better?
you now. Yes, perfectly.
Okay, sorry about that. These headphones have been acting up.
Yeah. I
Um,
decided not to use my headphones either this morning. I just wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong. There was no glitches. So
right, I know. Well, yeah, it's been such a trial and error to figure out how to do everything best for live, but
yeah.
this is part of it. Well, I love that you started your morning with a meditation. That,
It,
in fact, we like to start these sessions out with first just setting an intention. And
right.
so let's go ahead and do that. So my intention for today's session really is celebration is the word that I'm focusing on.
I like that. Okay.
Mhm.
And should I give you mine
Yeah, and
or
yeah, sure, if you could share yours.
and my intention is gratitude. Grateful that you've invited me onto your platform to share my thoughts and views on the situation at hand. So I'm very grateful and thankful. So I appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, let's just close our eyes and set that intention for a second, and then we'll get started. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Perry.
Thank you
Very
so much,
excited.
Brian. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So I would like to start this out with explaining what we're doing in terms of the donation. So MagicLinks has made a $500 donation to the Innocence Project on your behalf.
I appreciate you so much
Yeah.
for that. Thank you.
And if you could first, we would love if you could share a little bit more with us as to why you chose that particular organization.
Well, I mean, I just have seen and watched over the years so many people, African Americans in particular, that have been falsely imprisoned. They've served half of their lives, if sometimes not, three quarters or their entire lives in jail for crimes that they did not commit. The Central Park Five, for example. I don't even know. I don't think the Innocence Project even existed back then. This was like the uh, late '80s, early '90s. But those were five kids that were accused of raping a woman in Central Park, and the system just rushed them straight through. Everybody just automatically assumed that they were guilty. The the person that was responsible for representing them in court, so I think that if the Innocence Project had been around then these kids would have had a little more hope, for being, exonerated. But that didn't happen until years later. So the Innocence Project is something that is extremely necessary for all races, but I believe for blacks in particular.
Yeah, love that. I know another organization that we have donated to recently is the Bailout Project,
Yes.
focusing, of course, more on protesters recently. So yeah, absolutely hear you there. And so with that said, I think let's sort of introduce you to anyone that may not be familiar with who Perry White is. If you could just tell us a little bit more about you and your background in design is really fascinating.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Perry White, of course, and I'm a fashion designer. I've been in the industry for about 30 years now. I won't give the exact number because I don't want to give my age away. But yeah, I started designing as a child. My mom would take in sewing. That's how she supported our family. She would make dresses for anybody who wanted them. And I would sometimes watch my mom. I go to bed at night and she'd be at the sewing machine sewing, and I'd like wake up in the middle of the night to go pee, and she'd still be sewing. And I get up the next morning to go to school, and she would still be there. And in the neighborhood that we grew up in, she wanted to make sure that I was safe and focused on productive things. So she said, you know what? I have a pair of scissors. I have all these scrap fabrics, make something.
Mm.
And that was the beginning. And so later on, I became the kid in the neighborhood who could make clothes. I would do everybody's alterations. Bell bottoms were in fashion then. So if they wanted, their pants slimmed down a little bit, I would do it. If they wanted them taken up in the waist, I would do it. And therefore, that helped me to navigate, the Compton area, because that's when the gang violence was really, really in full swing at that point. But because of because of my friends in that area and the people that knew me as being someone who made clothes and could provide a service for them, I was able to navigate. I was never expected to join in those activities. So, and then one day somebody said to me, "Oh, well, you're a fashion designer." I had no idea what that was. This was way before the internet. I had to go to the encyclopedia and
Wow.
and look it up. And so I did that, and I said, "Wow, okay, that's exactly what I am." And that's when I got serious about it and enrolled in FIDM.
That's amazing. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's incredible I love the background about your mom being the first introduction to sewing and garment making.
Oh yeah.
Where has that, okay, so now we fast forward to present day.
Right.
What does that look like of now you've established an entire brand? I know personally you have done some amazing work for MagicLinks, like our favorite like MagicLinks branded merch is from Perry White. So we are obviously, of course, native fans here. But yeah,
Thank you so
what all
much.
is going on with you?
Thank you. And I just have to say, it's always a pleasure to do anything with you guys over there. It's always so fun. And you really have a family-like atmosphere with your organization. And you always make me feel so welcome. And I really appreciate you for that. But yeah, so since then, graduating from, I went to FIDM for about a year. It was probably $5,000 a year back then, which was very expensive for me coming, my mom couldn't help. So I transferred over to Trade Technical College. And I got my degree in fashion from there, and then went on to start my own company, making super fashionable clothing, very super fashionable, but extremely wearable. I like to blend the two elements. So, you feel like you could walk the runway in it, but it feels like you're wearing sweats almost.
Mm, yeah,
um,
yeah.
I was, went to New York. I thought I was going to build my life there. And then I was offered a job back here in Los Angeles after being there for about a year. I came back. That job didn't necessarily work out too well. So then that's when I formally started my Perry White brand. And I've been doing that for probably about the last 26 years. And doing a lot of celebrity work,
Mm.
mostly entertainers, some athletes. But yeah, that's basically how it's unfolded.
So, well, I think that we have a few people from the team that are in the comments and are shouting out the sweats. Like, yeah, so you're definitely part of the family. We know we were, yeah, very happy to have you. And I keep bugging Jen, and I know you with even with Jen, who for anyone who doesn't know, so Jen is our director of brand partnerships, and so Perry has worked with Jen even on some of her personal items and
Exactly.
created some like really
I love
amazing.
Jen. That's the homie.
Yeah, that is the homie for sure. So, you know, I'm curious though to talk more about your celebrity clientele and
Okay.
really like what that's looked like for you. Like what sort of became your like what you're well known for in your niche. Like what and how have you built out that celebrity clientele from there?
You know, it's very interesting. I'm not sure. It just kind of like took on a life of its own. I remember years ago working with a woman by the name of Eula Smith. She was the buyer for the Nordstrom stores. And I remember her seeing my product on the runway. I had a little small fashion show. She was there. She loved the stuff. So she decided to, do a test order and put it in a couple of the Nordstrom stores in the Savvy departments. Well, within the Savvy department, of course, let me back up a little bit. Eula is very well connected in the entertainment segment of, Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of her friends would shop in the Savvy department who were entertainers or either the wives of entertainers. And so they started to gravitate towards my product. And so it just kind of like caught fire, they would tell their friends or their friends would compliment them on what they were wearing. And it just kind of like took off from there. The next thing I know, people like, Macy Gray, is asking, if she could, buy something for me. And then that turned into, a lifelong friendship. I was fortunate enough to meet her before her career really took off. So
Wow.
I started making things for her. And then all of a sudden there was this big bidding war, between all of the record companies. And so things just exploded. Next thing I know, I'm doing her tour wardrobe. I was doing her stage wardrobe. If she was doing any, talk shows, I was doing that. If she was doing any award shows, I was doing that. And it was like a wild ride for like a couple of years. And
Wow.
from there, people just started like ringing my phone.
That is incredible. So really it's been, I mean, so you obviously a lot of this predates social media
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
have, and really the
Yeah,
culture today, which supports a lot of up and coming artists and creatives, right? And so this
right.
was like the old school word of mouth is really what caught fire. That's incredible. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny that you even say that because this was kind of like almost when the internet was just becoming popular. I remember
Mm-hmm.
us being on the red carpet at the VH1 Vogue Awards, and they interviewed both Macy and I together on the red carpet. And then there was a guy that came up, I believe it was either before us or after us, and then they asked him a question about the internet, which was so new at the time. And the guy made a statement. He said, "Oh, well, if you have time to be on the internet, then you're not busy enough. You're basically you're a loser."
Wow. How far we've come.
It was that long ago where people thought basically the internet was useless.
Yeah. That is, oh my gosh, that is wild.
Isn't that funny? But yeah, so it just kind of like spun out of control from there. And then since then, I've been fortunate enough to work with people like Prince. I did his 2005, I believe it was, musicology tour. That was like my dream job.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it was just like that was seriously on the top of my wish list. And then everybody from Snoop Dogg to Dr. Dre, Coolio, Ice-T, Ice Cube. I mean, just like it just kind of evolved into like a whole. I had like a huge segment of the rap industry as well at that time. So it just kind of like took on a life of its own.
Yeah, that's so I'm curious then about, I guess, like your particular aesthetic and working with someone like Macy and then that segueing over to working with more of a rapper style artist. So how have you kind of found like creative inspiration throughout all of these amazing projects?
Well, the interesting thing about it is I kind of like looking at the individual,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of catch a vibe, or I see things within them and their personalities, or their personal body language, or their swag, that kind of gives me a little bit of direction into what I feel I should do for them fashion wise. Like Macy, when I first met her, she reminded me of like a female Jimi Hendrix, literally. And I was just, and her personality as far as clothing, it's very much like my own. So, I mean, at the time, I'd be like, literally, if I had been a stage performer, every single thing that I made for her, I would have worn myself. And her aesthetic was not very, she had a very androgynous kind of thing going on, but leaning more towards masculine in her attire. So a little bit flamboyant, with the furs and the feathers and all of that stuff, and some of the upholstery fabrics. It was very, almost kind of like very Edwardian, but with a modern day twist. So that is kind of like what inspired me. I just kind of like to look at people and just kind of think, what can I do for this person that is not typical? And how can I push them to their limit? Push them beyond their comfort zone, but still have them be able to be themselves and pull it off. So that's kind of always my job, is to not allow you to just be normal, or wear what you think you feel most comfortable in. I need to push you beyond that. And
I love that mentality. So it sounds like there's been a lot of really treating every single project case by case and acclimating to that person. I love that concept. Jen had a question. I'm curious to hear about this. So she asked, what's been your greatest challenge as an independent businessman and artist and designer?
That is, wow. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put that into a nutshell.
Yeah.
But most of the challenges for me, I mean, I feel very free and very artistic. I don't feel like I have any limitations as far as my creativity goes. Most of my limitations have been financial. It's, a lot of companies, a lot of banks just aren't willing to give Black businesses loans. It's very, very, very difficult. Even though your credit score is great, you may be shipping, a couple $1 million a year in business, but when you sit down with that bank manager or that loan officer, somehow there's always a reason why you don't get the loan. And then I may be doing better business than, my neighbor who is white or Persian or of another ethnicity, and they're getting loans like crazy. They have a line of credit, they have, a small business loan. They have like all of these different tools that help them to go and do bigger and better business. But those same tools are not, I'm not considered for those same tools.
So financial. So I think some of financial, the same financial, and also it sounds like within there's the financial opportunity as well. Like having the equal opportunity has not been the same.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that goes way back. I mean, it's just not in fashion. That was established long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the homeownership in the Black community is so low. It's not that Black people aren't out there and they're not earners and that they're not hardworking people and that they're not responsible people. Just the banks just are not willing to give, many African Americans the same loans that they would give to other nationalities.
Yeah.
And that goes back to conditioning. It goes back 500 years. And I don't know if we want to dive into that, which we can if you want. but still, some of that sensibility, some of that same thinking still exists today.
And you had mentioned when we had chatted before this, you had mentioned on the more relevant to the fashion industry as well. So we talked a little bit about financial institutions, but also in terms of the buying process. So, you know, you had
I'm
mentioned
sorry,
that.
can you repeat that? The what?
So sure. So in terms of the buying process
The
of,
buying process.
getting your line out there and supported by more major retailers, that you feel also in that capacity, it hasn't been the same as well. Could you kind of elaborate more on that
Oh
piece?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the fortunate thing for me is, you know, the woman that I spoke of, Eula Smith, that was the buyer for Nordstrom, who went on to be the general merchandise manager, which meant she was the boss of all of the buyers. And then she even went on to be, you know, one of the VPs at Nordstrom. Well, this is an African-American woman. So
Okay.
she saw the fact that I could compete with any of my white counterparts as far as creativity, as far as manufacturing product, and as far as manufacturing it and delivering it on time,
Right.
and
Right.
quality. So she gave me a shot, and it was, you know, successful. But this was within Nordstrom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there will be times where I got an all-store buy from Nordstrom because of her.
Mm.
You know, I have hung in Saks, I've hung in Neiman Marcus, but I wasn't given that same opportunity within those stores because, and I don't want to say because they were white buyers, but because I believe that we're conditioned to, or within the fashion industry, to give that opportunity to other people. And I think that it's not even conscious. It's just such a part of the fabric in which we have developed over years that people just don't think about it. They just, you know, just act automatically. It's just gut instinct. It's impulse. So, you know, if I show up and I'm showing my line, then maybe I'll get an order for, you know, maybe one store. But if someone else shows up and maybe their line is equal to mine,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe they'll get the opportunity to do 10 stores.
Mm.
You know, and I don't think that the buyer is consciously sitting there thinking that, but she's conditioned as well, and she doesn't even realize it, or he, for that matter.
Right. You know, I think when we sort of apply that to our industry, working more on the influencer side, we have really taken a hard look at that conditioning piece to realize, you know, where have we been covertly racist in the way that we've built systems, and
Right.
realizing that that's not the same. And I mean, absolutely. I know that you had mentioned to me that even you recall as a young boy that your sister had made some sort of comment about, and
Exactly.
you know, and
Yeah, it was the craziest thing that at that time, and I was a kid at that point. I think I was 14 years old, 13 or 14. My sister was probably 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And we were looking at, I don't know, some TV show. It was probably Dynasty, or, you know, one of those nighttime dramas or whatever. And my sister turned to my mom and said, "Mom, why do white people look better than black people?"
Wow.
Well, if a child is saying that, a child now, this is somebody who, from the mouth of babes, it's the truth. It's like, this is what she has been conditioned to believe through television, through magazines, through TV commercials, through movies, everything that she sees going on around her. She's been conditioned to believe that another nationality looks better or dresses better or is more groomed or is all of these things as opposed to African American people. And it's just false. It's very untrue. It's just that I believe that white America has conditioned everybody to believe that theirs is the standard, and if you can't get on their page, then too bad. But the bad side of that is there's no way we can get on white America's page, because my skin is never going to be white, and my hair is never going to be straight, and my nose is never going to be thin and narrow. So, and I say that because there have been times where I'm standing right next to someone who I'm clearly more qualified than, and they get the opportunity and I do not. That's happened a whole lot over the course of my career.
That, I mean, it's just, it's the truth. There's really, I mean, it's the truth. And it just, I think when we're looking at it to our industry, it's really, we're trying to figure out how do we create more equity and actually having checkpoints in place to make sure that this isn't happening, you know, because now the world of Dynasty has now turned into the world of Instagram, you know, like we have a completely new atmosphere. There's new emerging voices and talents coming out every single day.
Right.
And, we have a lot of power in that, of knowing that we're connecting a lot of these people to major opportunities. And, now it's turned into who gets the brand deal or who gets to be associated with this brand. And even with another session with someone else on Tea Time, she had brought up really that even within that, we still have to be focused on colorism within working with a person of color. And,
right.
And we see that a lot as well. It's like, okay, well, and this goes back to what you were saying with the Euronormative beauty standards of, okay, well, you're Black, but but you're light skinned, or you have features that are more Anglican. And so, there's that side to it. And so, equal representation is huge. I think you
Exactly.
shed light to that for sure.
And let me touch on that just a little bit as well, because there are people out there that you say, they're light-skinned Black people. America somehow has taught light-skinned Black people as well to believe that they're more worthy than darker Black people. That we have racism within the Black culture, where if their hair is straighter or their skin is lighter, that they feel that they're more worthy. And white America has made them feel that way as well. Maybe the lighter skinned person, because they pass a little bit more or a little better, or their features are a little more acceptable than a person of a darker complexion with a wider nose and fuller lips. So yeah, it's a very complicated web. And then also where you mentioned about some of the Black beauty people probably not getting the brand deal. I heard a high fashion model mention that many years ago. She said that it's a woman by the name of Beverly Peel. You can research her, but she was like literally, she was right there with Naomi Campbell and Christy Turlington and all of those models back in the late 80s, early 90s. And she said, why is it that, I'm at the top of my game, but, and I'm in all of the runway shows and I'm in all of the magazines and I'm getting covers, but why is it that I can't, if someone comes to me and says, we want to give you a makeup deal or, come and be the face of our product, that I may only get, a $20,000 deal, but then, my white counterpart, who is less famous or less well-known than I am, she may get $100,000 deal. Why is that? How do you justify that? Well, she told me this personally, like many, many years ago. And that's always stuck with me. And it's just like, how do we begin to make people understand that this is what you're doing? And either you realize that you're doing it, or you just are going with status quo and you're going to keep doing it because those before you did it, or you're going to do something to change it. And you're going to analyze every single step that you take, and every word that you speak to somebody, you're going to analyze why you're saying it and who you're saying it to. Because I think that for so long, we're just going along with what, the standard that someone else built for us many, many years ago. So we need to break it all. We need to dismantle it completely and then build it back up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one question that I think is a good way to sort of close this out is when looking at a lot of young creatives that are about to embark on this journey, and I'm sure many aspire to have as remotely as successful as a career as someone like you. What is your advice to a young person of color that's entering this industry and is about to face a whole lot of bullshit?
I would say to them, and I know a lot of people may get this twisted, but you got to put your blinders on. You got to put your blinders on. Go full force for what it is that you want. You have to be almost dogmatic about it, relentless about it. You can't be thin-skinned. You can't let your feelings get hurt too easily, because you're aware of the way that things are. The situation. We know that there's systemic racism. It exists. It's alive and it's thriving. You have to block it out. We're working on it. I'm not saying don't sit and talk about it, but when it's time to work, you got to go to work. Let your work speak for itself. And then if someone denies you based on your work, and your work is superior to a whole lot of others, then that's when you can call things out. That's when now we have social media. We didn't have social media in my day.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
when I started like in the 80s, we didn't have it. It didn't exist. So basically we just had to grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you can call anything or anybody out when it happens. And your work is the receipt. So don't complain if you're not doing the work. Do the work. And then if you feel like you're being unjustly, if you're not getting the gigs, or if you're not getting the orders, then you call it out. And then you compare, you draw the comparison. You say, okay, well, they bought this, and I believe that my work is superior to this, and I'm just as qualified as this person, but I'm not getting the orders.
Mm.
I believe that would be my advice. But you got to go to work. You got to go to work first.
I love that.
Be focused. You got to build it up, and then present it, and then go from there.
I love that. Honestly, that's so huge. Really, I mean, it's true, and I think that's where we feel very thankful to work in social media and to have platforms now that holds people accountable. Right? That's what feels different in 2020, even versus different Black Lives Matter movements over the past couple of years. This year, it's like people are being pulled out to dry, and I love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We love it. It's great. And so
absolutely. And that's why I appreciate you so much for even allowing this to happen, or even considering me, for this today, because I mean, it's like you are like one of the groundbreakers. You're out there and you're saying, wait a minute, something is wrong. Mm-hmm. Where so many people before have sat silent. That's why. I mean, literally, do you think that people didn't in other places didn't know what was going on with the civil rights movement of the 60s? Everybody all over the world knew, but people chose to sit silent and let it happen. Mm. You know what I'm saying? People chose to sit silent, and allow people to, be afraid to go and vote because their homes may be blown up, or they may be shot and killed or whatever. But people just sat silent. Mm-hmm. You're saying, listen, we have to call out racism. If we don't completely understand how we allowed it to get to this point, but let's figure it out. And that's what I appreciate about you. And I really thank you for allowing this to happen today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That's very kind to say, and I appreciate that feedback. I mean, honestly, it's been a great growth opportunity for our entire organization to really embark on making a lasting impact. And hearing from leaders like you really helps us, because the point of this, above anything else, and I keep saying this, is above all else, it's as we start to figure out what things are we going to implement in our processes, because that's where we're going to see the most change. It's exactly. We can talk about this all day long, or we can start doing something about it.
You can start doing something. Yeah.
So
and you're doing something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Like
so this is one piece of it. So Perry, thank you so much for joining us on Tea Time. This has been amazing. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, anytime you need me for anything, call on me.
We want new merch for the office. Like, we need a summer drop. Seriously.
I got you covered. Jen has you covered on that.
Okay, good. I'd wear my sweater right now, but it's a little too hot. So, but yeah, we need something light and airy now.
She's working on something that's a little more lightweight for you. So
love it. Yes, I can't wait for the reveal. So thank you everyone for joining. This is Tea Time. We will be back next Friday with Jordan Abdur. He is a entrepreneur who actually is another within sort of Perry space. He's another creative. He has a company that supports Black artists, and he does drop shipments of their art. So it's this really amazing concept, working with him on the MagicLinks side as well. So that'll be next week. Perry, thank you again. Bye everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later.
I really appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Have a good one. Thank you.